Who would have ever thought that deleting your photos would be such a controversial topic with a multitude of different ways to do it, along with a ton of differing opinions on the overall damage that can be done to your camera and SD card if not done correctly? Well, in this video, I'll review the different ways to delete your photos from your SD card, along with what the best, the easiest, and the safest way to accomplish this is. So there's really, I guess, four main ways to go about this. And the very first way is to delete everything individually in camera, which is definitely not the I should say the most efficient way to do it. But every camera today does have a dedicated button. I shouldn't say every camera, most cameras today have a dedicated button for deleting individual files. It's usually indicated with a trash can icon. And I used to do this when I first got started because I believe the first SD card I got was maybe 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes. And in my mind, I wanted to preserve how much space was on these cards. So I would be on location, I'd take a photo I didn't like, and I would review it. And then I would determine whether or not I wanted to keep it or delete it right there. Not really the best practice to go through. It's definitely not efficient. Plus, you could be deleting something that you think looks bad on your LCD, but if you had it on a monitor, you might think otherwise. But that is definitely an approach to go. Definitely not something that I would recommend doing. The next approach, the second approach, is to take the media, or I should say take the SD card out of your camera and then place it inside of your computer. And then you go ahead and transfer all the media. When I say media, that could be photo files, it could be video files, but transfer all of that media to your actual computer. And then once you are confident that all of that information is successfully saved to your computer, then take your SD card out of your computer, place it inside of your camera, and then you use your camera's delete all function. Some cameras, I guess, do have a delete all button, although I don't think many of the more modern cameras do. But somewhere in your menu system, there is a way to delete all of the media files from your actual SD card. Now, the third route to go is to take your SD card out of your camera, place it inside of your computer, transfer all of your media to your computer, and then once you're confident that everything is successfully saved to your computer, then you can go ahead and drag all of the media from your SD card on your computer and drag it over to the recycle or the trash can bin on your desktop. This is another route you can go. I don't like to do this anymore. I'm the kind of guy that when something burns me one time, I usually don't do it anymore. And what happened, I came back from a trip. I had roughly 5,000 photos on an SD card. I transferred everything to my computer. That was perfectly fine. But then I highlighted all of those individual files, and then I went to drag them across my desktop and drop them inside of the trash can. And since we have so many items on our desktops nowadays, our icons are much smaller, or I should say our icons are very small. And I missed the trash can. I ended up dumping 5,000 individual files all over my desktop, which took quite a while to clean up. So I don't really go about that method anymore, but that is another approach. Now, the fourth and final way to accomplish this is to take your SD card out of your camera. You place it inside of your computer. You transfer your files to your computer. What I like to do is create a file on my desktop, and I will usually label this file wherever I am. So maybe this one would be Dolomites. And then I would transfer the information from the SD card. I would drag it onto the file for Dolomites. And then once I'm confident that everything is successfully saved, I will pop my SD card out of my computer, place it inside of my camera, and then I will go ahead and format that SD card. Now, those are really the four main approaches. I'm not aware of another method. If anyone else has another idea of how to do this, please leave those in the comment section below. But out of all the SD card companies that I have spoken to over the years about various different things, and out of all the photographers I've spoken to about this over the years, those are the four main approaches. But one of those methods is by far the most efficient, the safest, and the overall best way to go. Now, a common question is, what is formatting an SD card? And basically what formatting an SD card is either deleting or creating or replacing the overall file structure of an SD card. So when you get a brand new SD card and you put it inside your camera will always say, will always know that this is a brand new SD card and you need to format it, because there is no file structure on that SD card that your camera can save photos to until your camera creates it. And that's what this formatting process is. So when I put a new SD card in my Fuji camera that I'm recording on now, my Fuji camera will say, hey, you need to format this card. I'll format the card, and then my Fuji camera will put the Fuji file management or file structure on that SD card so I can begin saving media to it. You should really get into a habit of formatting your SD cards, regularly, often. It keeps them I should say regularly often, fairly often, I should say, but it keeps your SD cards working more efficiently. And I guess another option, another reason to do this is when you're using multiple different cameras. So a camera that is formatted for a Fuji camera, if I take that SD card out and put it in a Sony camera, it more than likely isn't going to work. I'll probably have to format it for that Sony camera as well, so then that Sony camera can add the Sony file structure to that SD card. That's a lot of file management mumbo jumbo, but that's basically the overall gist of it all. But as far as, what is the best route to go to safely delete information from your SD card, and it's this right here. You take your SD card out of your camera, you place it in your computer, you go ahead and save all that information to your computer. Once you're confident that everything is saved, take your SD card out of your computer, you place it in your camera, and you go ahead and format that SD card. That is by far, it's definitely the most efficient way, and it will keep your cards running more efficient longer. There used to be a belief that you could damage your SD card, you could damage your camera, or you could damage your computer, and rest assured, you're not going to damage any of those devices. Maybe back in the day you could, but you're not going to run into any issues doing any of these 4 methods. It really just comes down to what's going to keep your SD card working more efficiently, and that is definitely going to be formatting it more regularly, and what is the easiest way to transfer information to your computer, and that is by far the overall best option right there. I heard this explained one time before, the difference between formatting and erasing media from your card. Basically, if you erase media from your card, that is a similar process as, say, you're just washing a towel. You clean the towel, it's going to get it pretty clean. Now, if you format an SD card, an example of that would be is if you took that same exact towel, you washed it, and then you also washed it again with bleach. It would be completely clean. So it's just a difference between cleaning your SD card, versus completely erasing and keeping it like super clean. I thought that analogy was pretty good, the difference of the two. But that's the route that I go through. I've been doing it for many, many years. Knock on wood. I've never had an SD card fail. Not that any of these types of file transfer processes could cause an SD card to fail. The SD card companies that I've spoke to said that all of these approaches is perfectly fine, but they all do say the same exact thing, that formatting your cards on a regular basis is a good best practice to get into. Because not only does it erase the media that's on your camera, it actually is going to go in and it's going to erase the file structure of that SD card where all of that media is saved under, and it's going to replace it with a brand new file structure. And that's what's going to keep your SD cards working more efficiently longer. So it was definitely a question that pops up fairly often. I did some research. I really didn't see a lot of information on this topic, so I wanted to create a video here for you all today. I hope it was something that was helpful, and hopefully it will put your mind at ease if you were ever afraid that you were going to damage your SD cards or lose files or break your computer or break your camera. Rest assured, none of that is going to happen. Well, I guess you could lose some files somehow if you don't manage the process correctly. And something I do want to mention too, if you ever go to format an SD card or delete something off of an SD card and it says it is protected, there is a tiny little switch on most SD cards. I always err on the side of saying all because somebody will have one that doesn't, but for the vast majority of SD cards, there is a little switch here and there is a little lock, and more than likely you have that in the lock position. So if you slide it up, then you can go ahead and erase any information on that SD card. So just a quick tip. So if you have any questions about anything related to SD cards or transferring files to your computer or anything of that nature, please leave those in the comment section below, and I will get back in touch with you as soon as possible. And as always, if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.